see, let's try the clicker. All right, yeah, so a little bit about me. My name is, I'm Luke, and you wouldn't know to look at me, but I can run really fast. So, also, I work at Red Hat, where I work on Node-related items and such. I'm also American, based on my accent. Hopefully you can tell that. I am Swedish, but I do not hail from Sweden, if you were hoping for somebody with a Swedish accent. I am 5'7", which is roughly about, 170 centimeters, just for those who, want to know, based on me being on stage here. I also put a picture of myself up here so everybody in the back can see what I look like 15 years ago. I guess I don't take pictures of myself, so this is it right here. This is what I look like now. Right, so you can follow me on Twitter at SantaLuke. I usually tweet about Node-related stuff, usually retweets. I don't usually tweet too much about my own personal stuff. I also like and retweet various kind of Marvel and Seinfeld and Star Wars and those various things that are my interests. Also a very, very large Star Wars nerd, especially with the old trilogy. And so if you want to talk some Star Wars, come see me later. I also have this little Yoda figure that comes with me on all my talks and stuff. This is 1980 original right here, the year I was born. So yes, that makes me 42. I am quite old, I guess, compared to maybe the crowd. I don't know. I haven't taken a poll, so I'm not really sure. All right, so that's about me. So I do want to first thank my family, because me being here definitely disrupts our day-to-day at home. So here we have Gabe, and then Graham is on the other side. That's Jasper. That's our new addition, our bearded dragon. That's actually Gabe's pet. And then Chewy, all the way on the end there. Yes, my dog's name is Chewbacca. But I also want to thank specifically my wife, because she is handling all the childcare right now that I usually do, bring kids to school and making lunches and all this stuff. So can we please give a big round of applause for my wife, Mary? Okay, that's good. A little weak, but whatever. All right, yeah, so right, the talk's called Journey into Mystery, and if you are a comic book fan, you will know that Journey into Mystery was the first appearance of Thor and Loki. Not in the same issue, two different issues. So this is actually, a big ruse to actually talk about those characters instead of what I wrote on the abstract. Actually, I'm just kidding. So it's called Journey into Mystery. When I say Journey into Mystery, I'm talking about those things that exist in Node that we might not have ever experienced, but they're there, they're just existing, waiting for someone to use them. And which makes me think of this great quote here. It's sometimes tiny doors lead to big opportunities. Anybody know who may have said this quote? Anybody? No? Okay, I'll give you a second. What was that? No, not really close. If you said Lisa Simpson's cat Snowball 2, you would be correct. So, in case anybody is a Simpsons fan, that's for you guys. Right, so I took some inspiration from a couple of videos that I watched when I was doing mobile web about 10 years ago. And these were these two, videos that are now like 12 years old from Paul Irish called 10 Things I Learned from jQuery Source, and then the follow-up, 11 More Things I Learned from the jQuery source. You all remember jQuery out there, right? So these were big videos back in 2010 or whatever that was. Yeah. So if you want to check them out, they're pretty cool. If you wanted to know about jQuery, just Google them or whatever. Right. So just small. Okay. Yeah. It's two Simpsons references in 2 slides. So I don't know if I do anymore, but. Right, so a quick disclaimer about this talk. I definitely don't pretend to be an expert in all this stuff, in all Node-related items. Node is huge. but there are various things that I do have my finger on the pulse. There's a pulse out there, and I have a finger on that pulse, possibly. So some of the modules and the concepts and the APIs that I go over, they might be familiar to you, and that's cool. Whatever. But it might not be familiar to other folks that are maybe newer to Node and that kind of stuff. So my goal is really kind of the 80%, 20% model, where and the structure of this talk should go, and I'm not sure if it does, from things that are more well-known to the things that are lesser known in GNOME Core. I'm just reading my notes here, sorry. Oh, yeah, and I also had to, so as I was going through the talk, I actually had to cut a bunch of things out due to kind of the time constraints. So, maybe next year we could do a part 2, Somebody's laughing over there. That's great. Right. So, if there's things that I don't mention, and there's and you're like, oh, I've used this before, and you haven't mentioned it, you can just send me a tweet on Twitter or whatever. It's Santa Luke again, and maybe we can have a discussion there. Right. So that's my secret way of getting followers is to say that. All right, so with the disclaimer out of the way, let's go and see what are some of the more common modules first before we get into the things. So some of the things that you might know, right? So modules, and this is just a little smattering of things. So like the file system module or path, file system doing the input-output, read, write, and all that stuff, and then path kind of goes along with that. You have your HTTP module, which you probably don't use directly. You're using that behind like Express or like a Fastify or some other framework, but it's there. It's very common. I would hope people know about that. If not, don't worry. There's the child process. It's for executing kind of random code, I guess. And then we can't forget events because Node is a event-driven framework, so of course we need events there. As for APIs, here's just a few of ones that I thought were kind of more common, like the two process ones, like env and CDW, getting the current working directory or getting your environment variables from that you're passing in. I put the util.promisify on there and the util.callbackify, which I don't use the callbackify, but the promisify I've used quite a bit. I'm a real big fan of promises. So if these are new to you, don't worry, it's fine. And then I put my very personal favorite one at the very bottom, which is console log. I am a console log debugger. I'm sure many of you, show of hands, who are console log debuggers out there? Yeah, okay, all right. Props to console.log, yeah, love it. All right, so let's start here. So the first thing we're going to do here is kind of look at this. It's not really a module per se. It's globals, right? So you have these 5 things, and they're all these are in every single module that you would work with, but they're not actually globals. Node adds this wrapper here to every module that it calls. Where it, and so all those things are basically scoped to that one particular module. So they aren't actually globals. The reason why they do this, according to the docs, it keeps variables that we define with var, const, and let scoped to the module rather than the global object, which is great because you don't want to pollute the global object. That's why I'm not a big fan of jest. I'll just put that out there. And it also provides some, and this is verbatim from the docs, and I'm not really sure I like the whatever on this, but it says it helps provide some global-looking variables that are actually specific to the module, such as the module and export objects that Node can use to export values from the module. And the convenience variable is a file name. That's a __. I don't know if you can tell based on that. It just looks like one line based on the font. And then the directory name, and that contains the module's absolute file name and directory path, right? And also, I just want to quickly mention that this is for CommonJS, and for ES modules, well, yeah, I'm gonna leave that alone because, yeah, ES modules, not a big fan, and I'm not gonna start a flame war here. All right, so the next thing up is this node prefix concept. Right, so while this is not a module itself, it is, a kind of important concept here. So as it turns out, all the core modules in Node, you can prefix. So you can require, Node FS or Node assert, for instance. And why would you do this if it's just gonna be more verbose, right? But the trade-off here is that, it makes it so it's explicit that a module is coming from Node core. And tooling can check this out, and if you're a user coming in looking at code, you can look at this and be like, oh, this module is coming from Node core and not from userland, right? So, we saw, I'm sort of taking this a little bit from Liz's talk yesterday, where she had mentioned the test runner that came in Node. And this isn't necessarily the example that she used, but it's sort of similar, where where we're requiring node test and node assert and doing a test. And so the test runner actually is prefix only. So if you were to do this here and require assert, that would work. But if you were to just require test without the prefix, that would actually not work, because Node is now looking for a user module called test that you may or may not have installed. So don't do that. So if you're gonna use the test runner, you have to use it as a prefix. And at the moment, that's the only one. I'm not sure if there's gonna be more, but for now, that is the only Node prefix module that you have to use. All right, go there. All right, next up we're gonna talk about is Corepack. So this is a thing that was added in Node 16. It looks like it's backported to Node 14.19, whatever the latest version of that is. It's currently marked as experimental. It is, it's an experimental tool that helps in managing versions of your package managers. So basically what it does is it exposes these binary proxies for each supported package manager. And those supported ones are Yarn, PN, and PM at the moment. So when you call those, it'll identify whatever package manager is configured for the current project, transparently install it if needed, and finally run it without requiring explicit user action. So basically what that means, it allows you to use Yarn or PN and PM, which is a very tough thing to say, without actually installing them, right? So just like what currently happens with NPM, which, as we know, is shipped with Node. And since it is currently marked as experimental, it has to be enabled by default. It's not enabled by default, so you have to enable it, and you would do Corepack enable here. Yep, and then once you run Corepack enable, it'll set up all the symlinks in your environment next to the node binary, and then from that point on, any call to the supported binary like Yarn or the other one that I can't say very well, just work fine. Here is sort of, this was on my laptop last night actually going through to show. So, Corepack comes with the version of Node, so I did, which Corepack, and here it is. It's in the bin directory of my Node installation. As you can see, I'm using NVM for my Node versioning, which I hope all you are too. Not necessary, but it's fun. So then you do a Corepack enable, and then here I'm just saying, where's my Yarn and where's my PN and PM, and it's showing that they are installed in the bin directory, kind of next to where the node binary would be there. And then they're ready for use. There's another way that you can specify which manager and version you want to use, and this is the package manager field, which is in the package JSON. This is also an experimental feature. If the package manager, the package manager field corresponds to the relevant binaries, then it will download it on request and and then start working. And then say you want to, so I'm sure there's people out there like, what about Yarn and it? What do I do about that? So if you want to make sure that the global Yarn is a particular version, you can do this prepare statement, and you could say, Yarn at the particular version, and you activate it. Yeah, so that's I realize there's 4 slides in Corepack, and I'm not even a big fan of Yarn, so that's actually the last slide. All right, so the next module here is something that I was a little hesitant to put in, because I thought maybe it was a common thing, but we'll just go with it anyway. So query string, right? So, it's for parsing and formatting URL strings. It is marked as legacy. And so they do want you to, in the docs, they do want you to start using this URL search params. I said I was hesitant to put it in, but I'm assuming most people use this QS module based on the amount of downloads. I mean, it's got a shit ton of downloads, and a shit ton is defined as more than 71 million here. So that's sort of the reason why I put it, because I'm sure most people are using the QS module based on this download thing. Okay, so list of built-ins here. So have you ever wanted to know if a module is a built-in core module, right? So I'm sure my workflow is I go to NPM, I type in what I'm looking for, and I say, oh, there's a module there, so maybe I'll use it, right? And in this case, there's 2. There's a built-in module, and then its dependency is built-in module also goes with that. Actually, I think it's switched around. It is built-in module, depends on built-in modules, but whatever. But as you can see there, it's actually just a static list that's being, that's there, that's being output when you do that particular module, which is not great. I'm not big on, kind of hard coding stuff. It would be nice to be able to run a function that gives me up-to-date information, right? So there are some options in Node Core. First in the REPL module, there's this REPL.built-in modules, which was added in Node 14.5.0. I also wanted to add, for completeness sake, this private method, which is now actually deprecated, this REPL_built-in libs. And then in the module, there is the module.built-in modules, and there is the module that is built-in, which is added recently in Node 18.6.0. So you can use those instead of those NPM packages. Next up is Console.table. It is, I know we all know Console.log, love it. But this is a little handy little function here on, and I say API and function, I'm going to use those interchangeably, so don't at me. So this is something where, it takes a bunch of tabular data and it outputs it into this cool neat little table, right? It's, you could use it for debugging, you could use it for, maybe you have a CLI that has some data that you want to kind of show in a table format. This could be an option. Right, so in Node 10 it was added. It's been around definitely for a few years, but I always seem to forget about it. If you ever worked also in the Chrome inspector, you can also do it there as well. But it's a nice little thing, nice little tool. Right, so let's talk about some command line options here. So now, first of all, there are a ton of command line options, and if I were to put them all on the slides, it would be like multiple slides, and if you want to look at them, I definitely encourage you to go check it out, on the docs, and there's just a ton of them. But the ones we're going to talk about today are this pending deprecation one. So pending deprecation is similar to runtime deprecations, but however, if something is labeled as a pending deprecation, it won't actually, and you run it. Say if you have say if you're running some code that is labeled as pending deprecation, but you don't use the flag, it won't output anything. It won't output that it's a deprecation. So you would have to use the pending deprecation to see that kind of warning message. And then there's this other one called throw deprecation, which you could imagine, throws an error when you have a deprecation. So, with those two combined, you can do some pretty interesting stuff here. And I am going to try a live demo, which I haven't tried in about 5 years, so please bear with me. Okay, I go here, go to my terminal. All right, so what we're going to do is, yes, I use Sublime Text because Sublime Text is awesome. Let's move this over here just to show you what the code looks like. Okay, so that is not what I'm, okay. So I have this pending deprecation JS file. I'm requiring the REPL, and then I'm just console out logging. We're just going to do the length. We'll keep it like that. And as I said before, this function right here is deprecated. It's actually labeled as pending deprecation if you look into the docs. So let's go to the terminal here. If we run that just by itself, right, we'll get the list of modules here. All right. And there's no warnings or anything like that. So if we run it again and we use the command line flag pending deprecation, it's so weird having to look at that and type over, whatever. Pending deprecation. There's a space there, yeah. Okay, so we get the list, but we also get this warning at the bottom saying, hey, this is deprecated, check out this other module instead and stuff. So, which is cool, because then this is sort of like, an early warning sign if you're using, you can put this maybe in your CI or something like that, and if you have modules or have APIs that you're using that have been deprecated, you can start to kind of get these early warnings that, hey, this is deprecated, you might want to change it. But the other thing you can do, and if you combine the two, like this, throw deprecation. Oh, I typed that wrong. Yeah, probably. I'm not the greatest speller. There we go. So now it will throw the warning, but it will also throw the deprecation and exit out of the application. So if you were to do, having those two together in your CI, you can have your CI fail because there are maybe pending deprecations, and then you'll fix them, and you do all that. That's a whole process that you can do. But pretty cool, like little kind of, if those two together, you can do some pretty cool stuff. I guess while we're at this demo here, let's go back to here, and let's take. And I showed you the console table, but let's take a look if we do this with console table, because this does return an array. So we do that, boom, and then we say node. And we'll just do node. And then here's what the table will look like. Not very great, but there's an index column and there's values. If it was bigger, obviously it would be a lot cooler. All right. So I think that was the only demo there. Go back to the slides. Wherever you may be, slides, where are you? Let's close you. There we go. Okay, demo done, boom. Okay, so the next module that we're gonna kind of go over here is the VM module. It's, it's one of those things that's there. And this allows us to, run code within a V8 virtual machine, with its own particular context, right? So, if we look at this example, we're declaring x equals 1 in the very beginning. We're declaring a context saying x is equal 2 in this object. We're creating a context based on that context object we just did. And then here we're writing a little bit of code where x is going to be plus equal to 40, and then this y is just going to equal to 17, right? So if we run that code in the context with the context that we just created, we see that the answer for what context x is 42, because we know that 2 plus 40 is 42. You guys can check that on your calculator if you want to, just in case. And then y here was unchanged because it was 17. But then if we console out this x variable from the very top, it should be 1 because it is in a different context. Then y is not defined in this particular case. However, it does say in the documentation that this is not a security mechanism, so do not use it with untrusted code. I put it on its own slide, because it's very important, all right? And I did get a quote from an anonymous Node contributor of, yeah, it sucks. But you want to be anonymous, right? Oh, okay. Right, yeah, so be careful when you're using it, and it's definitely not a security mechanism. You can do some neat stuff with it, but don't run untrusted code. And this last one is kind of the reason why I actually did the talk here. As I was going through the docs, I saw this and I was like, what in the hell is this Punycode or Punycode maybe? I don't know. English is very hard. I'm a native speaker. It's still hard. I like to call it Punycode because I like puns, but I'm sure it's Punycode. I don't know. So, but however, before I get any actuallys from any bros out there, yeah, it's deprecated. And it's been deprecated for a while, and it's going to be removed at some point. But I guess while we're here, we might as well just talk about it, right? So what does it do? It's a character encoding for international domains. The module is a character encoding scheme defined by this RFC, and it's primarily intended for use in international domain names, because host names and URLs are limited to ASCII characters only. Domain names that contain non-ASCII characters must be converted into the ASCII version using the Punycode, the schema. This Punycode thing is actually bundled in from a userland code, and it was just exposed to Node as a convenience. It'd be interesting to see what the reason was, why this was put in the beginning, even now that they're taking it out, and just kind of directing you to use the userland version. That could be your homework, if you want. Yeah. So yeah, that's the end of this talk here. There was a lot of things that I had to cut out due to the time constraints. So maybe next year we can do a part 2 or something. NodeConf, except my talk. Right. So and then just to one more end here. At 4 o'clock today, we're having this. Me and my other colleagues here are having this workshop. So if you want to check it out, and not to brag or anything, but the recipient of the Node.js Unsung Hero Award from OpenJS World in Austin will possibly be there signing autographs and taking pictures. So maybe get there early. All right, that's my time. Thank you.